I don't wanna say true dollar amount, because obviously it's not a true dollar amount until you actually go out to bid and receive those bids back.
Are
But
those
we think we
borings-
could really dial it in.
Are those borings telling us how much we can build on as well?
They are telling us what the soil analysis is, how
Where the
much
wetland starts and where the,
One
Kinda.
of the things that has to do is, we need to put a stormwater retention pond in.
Okay.
Where's the best place to put that retention pond? How much aggregate underneath parking lot, underneath the building, different things like that.
okay.
Okay? Really is what's driving the earthwork side of, it doesn't sound like a lot, but you can be $400,000 off just on aggregate.
Sure. But my question was geared more to future police department.
Expansion will all
Will we
be,
have room to expand?
all be looked at
Okay.
of how much can we build, how far can we
How
build?
far can you go, yeah.
Everything else.
Okay.
Right? Some of that has already been determined through the delineation.
Yeah, I knew that, but, and I didn't know if there was a line already drawn in the sand or not.
It's,
Kinda?
Well,
we're cleaning that line up right now is what we're doing. That's how I'm gonna answer that question. I think it's a great question.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but yes, with a wetland delineation, they give you delineated lines.
Yeah.
Right? Now with the soil borings, you start to clean those.
That's what I was wondering if that helped to,
That is correct.
Okay.
question in that regard, is it possible to, for all intents and purposes, to transfer any of that wetland, use that wetland and fill and transfer the delineation to another wetland lot?
That is an
The city-
option that you can work with the DNR as well as to more or less fill land and create land elsewhere.
that's only if we don't find a hairy snail.
That is true, or the long-eared bat, or you can go on and on and on and on. But yes. Yes, is the simplified answer to that question is there
It
are
can
some.
be done.
It can be done.
Okay.
Yes, we could gain an extra acre for say, and take an acre away on the west side and make that wetlands. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
We could make the retention pond an acre bigger and gain 40 feet or something by,
oh,
so, yes, that is an option.
So there is no other game plan to try to scale it down a little bit more before, I mean, to, scale down the price a little bit more before it goes to referendum as far as, I mean, I know you're getting an amount that's close, but is it still sitting right where it's sitting, or are you gonna, is there plans to work with Robert E. Lee to try to minimize it a little bit more, or is it already just
Well-
kind of set in stone as far as the plans are, that what they are right now, and there's not gonna be any more changes per se before the referendum, I should say?
I think that would be a question, Midge, when we know, when we get to this point and we know what these numbers look like, okay? I think at that time, then the council would make a decision. If you wanna sit down, we wanna sit down and say, is there something we can scale back even more? Or, boy, this number really looks good. We've now chiseled $3.5 million or $4 million off of our, if you wanna call it middle price, or if we wanna scale, or we've already scaled back $5 million from our original price, before we started to get some numbers. But, so this is not a end-all, be-all. This is, the council will sit down and look at this before that referendum question gets put together.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, anything,
I think though, at this point, sitting down and talking about it for a long period of time about scaling it back, we don't know where those numbers come into play. Material prices are coming down a little bit. I'm not trying to make it sound like we're gonna go from 375 to 275. But now with this, I think they could still put together now some accurate pricing.
Okay.
The unfortunate other side of that, you could see that number go up a little bit because of the soil type.
Gotcha.
okay, anything else about the public safety building? If not, redevelopment area, number 2, update. Who's,
Is that on me?
well, Amber's not here, so I
Okay,
think it's
not a
on you.
problem. So, The RDA has not met now just because we're kind of in a, what I'm gonna call holding pattern, okay? The project as obviously, I think everybody now has gotten a chance to see it, has been down there. Everything is done. We have all the final submittals from our contractor. We are waiting for some paperwork and working with our contractor to get some final paperwork. And we should have this all completely closed out here by the end of the year, and everything to the Department of Administration by our goal date in December 31st. So with that being said, our next kind of phase is everybody, I think at the beginning of the month, we got to look at the developers agreement. We're continuing to move forward on working through that process. Myself and Amber will be doing Our City, Our County that airs once a month with different things going on. There's a lot of questions out there. People are starting to, what's going on? When are you building? What are you building? If I live there and I'm low income, if I live there and I'm not low income, we are going to do probably about a 1 hour segment and try to clean a lot of that up and answer a lot of those questions for the general population.
Are there any more deadlines, Matt? In other words, we had to meet a deadline to get rid of it. Do we have to meet a deadline to put more housing in its place? You know what I'm saying?
Our next deadlines are, no, there's not,
There's
because
not, okay.
our next deadlines are really germane to
Okay.
the fact of if we weren't planning on building anything there, then there's some deadlines that we can't do anything with that property until I think it's 7 years before, because of we tore it down on, we actually took over those properties, we tore them down. We can't just do whatever with that property. We need to continue now to build LMI housing on it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And moving on to the ad hoc committee, Downtown Business District update.
Sure. The ad hoc committee met last week. I was probably in the meeting for the last 10 minutes of it. We went through this last night, and John, I don't want to throw you under the bus, but if you want to just kind of give a little briefing on what all went down, or Jake
I
or
don't
Lee.
mean to throw you under the bus.
I'm sorry.
But I'm gonna. Why do I feel flat?
You did such a wonderful job at the CDC last night with
That's
it.
because Jake wasn't there and he was actually running the meeting in your absence.
You want me to do it, John, or you wanna?
Yeah, it doesn't matter, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jake.
All right. Well, there were a number of topics discussed. And the topics discussed at this point were, one, a physical count of parking spots available in the city on city-owned parking lots, in order to establish some sense of, are the parking lots striped correctly? Are they striped for maximum usage? And then how do we go about using that? One of the proposals that we're talking about is to, as we go down this road, I guess, we have to determine how many rental units are being utilized in the downtown area on this map, in the red T. How many rental units there are they all occupied? Are they all permitted? We've got some permit issues that we need to go through because the red area that we've got outlined is zoned C1 commercial and not mixed use. So we've got to do some examinations on city code to determine how we're going to incorporate mixed use and rentals and all of that sort of stuff. But ideally, on the parking side, we're trying to determine how to get the current rental cars off this T, off parking in this T on a permanent or a semi-permanent basis, and into quite possibly, say, the lot next to the fire department, in between the fire department and Steel Street. If it's striped properly, we're kind of estimated we could get 40 or so odd cars in there, that we may want to consider doing permit parking based on the rental units that the landlords would buy and then either charge their renters or incorporate it into the rent, a tag that allows them to park in an assigned parking spot and gets them off the street. This is possibly very permanent, impermanent, but what we're trying to do is kind of ease into it so that we don't have guys parking on the street, especially overnight in the wintertime. We don't want to have those issues. And the elimination of cars behind the buildings on Steel Street, up on jack stands, or not having moved or been registered or any of that sort of stuff, and getting that sort of cleaned up so that we have access for people to use. That's one thought. The second thought, we talked about using the St. Mary's parking lot. The problem with that is that we've got conditional use agreements with St. Paul's. We have some conditional use agreements with St. Paul's for Saturday and Sunday services. We don't have anything beyond that, like funerals or anything like that. They would probably just have to use the aisle in the parking lot. But getting everybody to move on a Saturday or Sunday for church services creates some special problems. Then we talked about, I touched base on the zoning. John has been doing an outstanding job highlighting code, and in terms of the zoning use. Right now, our zoning chart indicates that there can be mixed use, but it has to be 50% or less of commercial space, which for all intents and purposes means commercial space on the first floor and a rental property or other use on the second floor. Now, we can throw but what if the guy's got an apartment in the back and he rents out the front room on the second floor as an office? You can do gyrations like that, but that's essentially what it is. Aaron is going to be working on a letter to send to the property owners on this T, a letter highlighting what their commercial their zoning as C1 commercial responsibilities are, and asking them if they are using any of their available floor space or footprint as a rental property. The consensus is that we're going to hear back from the people that are using it correctly, and will fill in the blanks for us. The people that aren't using it correctly probably will not, but at least it'll give us an opportunity to target. John, you wanted to throw something in there?
Yeah, you hit it right on, but it's important to note that they could be renting it, but they're renting it as a dwelling,
Yes,
and that's
as opposed to a commercial.
Correct.
Yeah, so first floor, completely rented as a dwelling. First floor with curtains and all of that other sort of stuff, and sofas in the front room is not permitted on the way we're currently zoning. So we're going to have to review some of the zoning regulations and possibly create a mixed-use C1 zoning for this particular T area. Then lastly,
Can I ask you one thing, Jake, as long as you're on the zoning? When was it zoned C1? Like, there's been houses on that stretch that have been rentals forever. Did they make them rentals before it was C1, I guess is
So-
my
I think it's
guess.
by property.
By property, as things have progressed in the city, and yes, there have been some places that have been rental properties forever, or,
I can think of a couple, I don't know.
yep, or residential, let's call it,
Yeah.
right?
Yep,
If there hasn't been any change, it would always just stay as is.
okay.
All right, so if you look at our zoning in that downtown district, you see a lot of different colors down there. That's the reason for it. There is some residential down there, there is some business. There's some R1, some R2, and then there's some C1, C2, and C3 that all kind of blend in that greater downtown area.
Okay.
We also talked a little bit about the minimum requirements for a dwelling and whether
Yes,
or not
yes, yeah.
parking should be included in that minimal requirements. If you're offering a space as a dwelling for rental, then a parking space should be part of that agreement or part of the basics. That way, you know, every place where people are living, there's a parking spot that's not going to interfere with commerce or business on any of those streets which are principally C1.
Yeah, and the reason for canvassing these folks is that while we don't have an official health department, it would actually be the county. Our code requires certain livable conditions. It requires running water, it requires heat, it requires waste facilities, it requires a window in every bedroom, it requires quite possibly fire escapes, those sorts of things that would be incorporated with Gus and the fire department to determine whether they're up to code. So we do have those things, components, in our code. But now we're gonna have to figure out how do we go about enforcing that code, and you know, and then it comes down to a manpower issue. Who does it, how do they go about doing it?
Yeah, some of those codes would be more for the residential than commercial, would that be
yes,
correct?
Just
Yes.
residential,
Yes.
just the residential components. Yeah,
Because even the size of a bedroom, I think, is a code.
yes.
Yes.
So-
Correct, yes.
Okay,
Then lastly, well, we talked a little bit about garbage bins. We're trying to determine how to handle garbage bins. Some of these properties have potentially 3 apartments upstairs, plus the downstairs commercial garbage bins. So you're gonna have 8 or possibly 10 garbage bins for a particular location. How do we go about either reducing the number of that? How do we go about collecting garbage and doing all of that sort of thing? We kicked around some parking requirements, but the main thrust that we came away with there would be to, and I think, is it on the list? I don't see it, but the main thing that we would request from the council is approval to allow Public Works, Casey and Matt, to go out and buy brand-new 2-hour limit parking signs that we can place downtown. The solution to the garbage bin arena, at least in the winter time, would be then, as you've seen, the larger no parking with the hours that it's only 2 hours, would be a smaller sign underneath that would be something like no parking between 6:30 a.m. or 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. on Tuesdays for garbage collection, so that the garbage trucks are able to pick up garbage. That would be something that, as we refine the garbage collection issues, either through getting people to invest in dumpsters or whatever, and Aaron has been talking with the garbage folks about that. For at least for the short term, if we can get people to just stay off the street that allows the garbage trucks to collect garbage, then we're not going to have those issues.
Yeah. We have the collection, and then we have the storage of the containers.
Of the containers, where do you store them?
Out of view
Yeah.
of the storefronts.
Yeah. So we've got a lot of balls in the air, and at this point, what we really would be requesting is just the okey-doke from the council to approve the no parking signs, so that we can get those up and start getting people used to that.
So you all have the map in front of you, and it had, or you have it in your packet, there was, as Jake said, the red T. So that's where the no 2-hour parking, or no, the 2-hour parking signs that we're calling them?
Yes.
Yes.
That's where the 2-hour parking signs would go back up. They are currently there, they're just white signs. Like, it doesn't have 2-hour limit, it doesn't have anything on it. So we would be requesting to purchase new signs, and they would go back up along where the red T is. And then as Jake alluded to as well, you would be putting some kind of small sign underneath it that said, you know, no parking on Tuesdays, garbage collection days, whatever that wording might be, from 6 a.m. until 11 a.m. Most of the time GFL is out of there by 9 o'clock in the morning. We were kind of thinking about like what businesses would be affected if you had a no parking there on a Tuesday from, you know, 6 to 11. And well, you've got Cafe Palazzo, you've got the DMV, you've got a couple of the stores, the hardware store and whatnot. So that's still stuff that we're navigating through. But that's one of the possible solutions to the downtown area where it's so congested with the parking, is putting back the 2-hour parking.
Has there been any thought, and I don't have any specifics, so I might be washed up, but to, instead of having the whole street not park, having a designated spot to pick up the garbage? Have them bring their dumpsters to a designated spot?
I think,
I don't know how many we're talking, I don't know any facts, so.
yeah, we didn't really talk about that, and that, I'm not sure how that would affect the contract with the city, that the city has with the collection agency of doing curbside pickup.
Yeah, again, I don't have any facts, I
Just
just threw that out
on,
there.
what is it, Steel Street from 2nd Street to 4th Street, I would say you have what, 50 bins between both
At
sides?
least,
If
yeah.
not
Yeah,
more.
if not more.
Okay.
I would say
I mean,
somewhere
there's one of the businesses that's right on the corner of Steel and, 4th. Steel and 4th, that I know has 6
Six of
bins, 8 bins sitting out there right now.
And go across the street and there's another 6 or 8.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not an attractive corner.
It's not?
But with that, we also have to consider if there is going to be curbside pickup, the robotics of it have to be able to get in between the containers, pick them up, dump them, put them back down, and move to the next one.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's a lot of.
Yeah, like I said, I just threw it out there,
I did get a
Answers, fair
message
enough.
back from GFL, the collectors today, and they did say that everything is going very well. Even on today where there was a lot of snow, they had a rep down there at 6:30 this morning, and she said, things are going good, but she goes, I totally see where your concern is about having this many garbage containers on a street in your downtown. Where do you park? How do you do this? And what do you do when somebody comes up and parks there? And they
Yeah.
completely see our concerns with this.
And if you got residents that
Well,
don't get home till 4 o'clock, them garbage cans, even though they're empty, they're gonna be laying there by the curb.
Yep.
And that'll be the next thing, then you'll get people calling and saying, well, how are we supposed to park there, and then the garbage cans are in their way. So it's a lot of things to look at, I'll tell you. It's
Yeah,
just-
a lot of wheel spinning, so do we need to have this moved to city council?
Yeah, I guess what we were asking for from the committee level is to implement the 2-hour parking again, getting new signs with that. What did you say the cost for that was?
Be about $1,000.
And then possibly putting something about the garbage underneath.
Is that something this body can do? We don't need to go to council for that?
It would go to council for final adoption.
Okay. Well, I'd make that motion if that helps.
I guess,
Okay.
Would they ever change the date of pickup? Like if we end up changing carriers, then we've got
That's
the
why we're
sign
still
that-
kind of in the
Yeah.
works with GFL, like, hey, are we always gonna be on Tuesdays? What do we do when our contract is up with them? The other thing they had tossed out was, you know, what if you just put garbage collection day? Well, I don't live here. I have no idea what your garbage collection day is, so I'm thinking that you can park there on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I mean, obviously, you're gonna see the bins and you should get that hint, but
And Tuesday doesn't always work either. I mean, you still have some days.
I mean,
where
you have some holidays where we
Monday,
get bumped.
Where we get Wednesday instead
Yeah.
of Tuesday. I mean, there is that,
Yeah.
but the first step should probably be one that covers 90% of the situation, so.
so you've got a motion from Steve and a second by Kevin?
And the motion is to move forward with the ad hoc committee's recommendation
The
of
2-hour parking and purchasing the signs,
the 2-hour parking and
purchasing of the.
anything
signs.
with the garbage or just the 2-hour parking at this time?
You can add the garbage in there, the whole,
Everything with the
yes.
signs.
Everything with, okay.
Sorry.
I can't answer why the 2-hour parking signs went away, but if anybody notices, there are 2-hour parking signs on Fourth Street and on Steel Street now with the times that are taped out.
But they will be different color. Obviously, since Fourth Street is a state highway, there are gonna be some issues with the color of signage on, that we can select, because we can't duplicate some state colors that they use for signage, but we're gonna come up with something that is readily recognizable as a no parking, 2-hour no parking, as opposed to the white signs. Everybody sees, the white signs are invisible to people at this point, so we're gonna try and,
Shocking pinks available?
I would imagine, or lime green maybe.
Okay,
You know.
well, we have a motion and a second that we need to deal
Yep,
with.
motion and a second. The only additional commentary that I guess I would make to that is kudos to the ad hoc committee. That's a lot coming out of one meeting. That's awesome. I think it's also important to remember when you guys are looking at the parking aspect of it, that regardless whether or not we have tenants that are living in those facilities on that T zone, from November 1 through April, what have you, they have to have parking somewhere because there's no parking on the street during the winter time. So I'm assuming we're talking about convenience, right?
Correct.
It's easier and nicer for me to park on the street than it is to park in my parking spot that they provide me.
Yeah.
So,
Correct, yes.
And I'm sure you guys have already thought about that, but no, kudos to you guys for doing that.
There may be some inconveniences with living downtown.
Yep.
Is the only thing
I have
I can
no
say.
doubt in my mind that there is.
Okay,
Well, good job.
do you want a roll call on that, or just all in favor?
It's just getting pushed,
Okay,
it'll go to the
okay.
full council.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we hear no opposition, so that passes. Okay, then we are on to the new business, the Public Works Fire Department calls and training.
Is this in their packets? Yeah. Everybody has that in their packets.
Yeah.
So this has gone through 2 months of the Public Works meetings. We met and talked, discussed about this at length. It was their recommendation at Public Works to send it to the Finance and Personnel body to vet, okay? But I'm gonna turn it over to Casey, because Casey probably is gonna be able to give a lot more in detail. This is something that he put together and spent a lot of time doing, so. Casey?
So on the sheet, it basically breaks down per employee that we have, time that they had spent on calls in 2020, 2021, and 2022. So basically what it is, it's breaking it down into, like if you look in 2020, 5.75 hours for one employee, which came up to be 0.02%, 0.002% of their total yearly earnings. Basically, because we're now our policy states that we pay them at, if you go leave on a fire call or an EMS call, it's, you get paid for 2 hours, and after that, you use vacation. Nobody complains about it, just, I was trying to proactively look out to our guys that shop a little bit. And I thought, well, what if we try to pay them more because it's a city service? You know, the fire department's struggling finding guys, but, so you go down, basically in 2020, it costs for one employee $140 that we paid for them to be on calls. If we paid them more than 2 hours that year, it would have been an additional $20.58. So the recommendation that the Public Works Committee made was, correct me if I'm wrong, sorry, it was if this call happens within the city of Algoma on work hours, to pay them for the total, or if it's 2 hours or 8 hours, to pay them for up to their 8-hour working day. And then if it's out in the township or mutual aid, we keep it as is with 2 hours paid, and then the rest is on their own with vacation or unpaid, whatever they choose. And either way, it would not go directed towards, like, say if we had a call today and they're working, it would not go towards their overtime if, per se, we had to work late Friday or plow snow on Saturday. It would not contribute towards their.
It wouldn't put them into overtime.
Yes.
Correct.
They would still have to work that.
More specifically,
40
the city
hours.
one, if they spend 7 hours one day on a fire call.
That is correct.
Right.
Correct. they'd still have to work their 40 hours on top of that, so they're gone for 6 hours.
Yeah. Sounds right.
You answered my question about the country round. I make a motion to go with this.
How does this sit with the employees?
They didn't even know I really brought it until after I was done, but they're fine with it either way. They honestly are, 'cause it's not gonna change anybody's response. If they're getting paid or not, if they're able to, they're gonna leave, because it's kind of what we're trying to do, I guess. I mean, it's not gonna hurt their feelings one way or the other. It's just,
Okay. I know you wanna make a motion, Kevin, I just have more commentary than anything.
I have a couple questions.
The numbers that I'm looking at on here, why, kudos to you for putting in the time and the effort for this, Casey, but what the heck are we even talking about?
Well,
It's city
I
dollars.
mean, we want, I understand
Right
that,
now,
and I
our
wanna be
employee-
respectful of
Our
that, but I
employee
mean, it's-
handbook does
it's-
not state this in it.
This is so damn minuscule, I mean, we want people to sign up for EMS, EMTs, and fire and rescue, I mean, if you're okay, and that's why I asked if the employees are okay and the guys are okay, men and women that are on this, okay, I'll support it, but this is,
At some point,
Kind of
we have to
ridiculous.
stop saying it's minuscule.
it requires a
It's
change
like
in
the
our
10th
employee
time that I've been
handbook.
on this council that I've heard, it's just minuscule.
And he made a
When,
good
when is it
point.
not minuscule? What's the number?
You know, it is tax dollars, and Casey did make a good point.
Yes.
If they're on a country run, they're getting
Yeah.
paid
Yeah.
extra, so they're not double dipping now.
Right.
It's fair, so I think something should be
I
written
think it's
down.
fair, though.
Yeah, this is.
the way
It's
it was
not gonna hurt our
presented.
budget at all. I mean, I know it's minimal money, but Amber, this isn't gonna put a snafu to, let's say, a couple $100 or whatever it is, if it is even that. But
I
that's
don't
not
think it
gonna,
will. And quite honestly, this is how we used to do it.
I was gonna
until
say it.
somewhere along the line, the last 9 years, somebody had a problem with it and we made a change.
yes.
But it had been this way for evermore.
That's why I was kinda shocked, because I still think it was, I always thought it was, they got paid for in the
Yeah.
city. And, you just took it for granted. I didn't even realize they changed it.
I mean, still, if they're plowing snow, like pouring concrete, putting blacktop down, or something pressing even, any matter, if nobody can go, nobody goes. It's,
Yeah, it's just.
and our guys are pretty good at, all right, you wanna call, it's lift assist at north side of town, you drive up there, as soon as you're done, you come back. You don't sit around and talk about it for a while, you literally, you get it done and you come back to work.
I think,
our guys are very good at that.
I think the change had originally been made to switch to what it is now because a prior manager wasn't managing the people appropriately. Now you've got managers who are managing appropriately.
And I think it's important to add too, is one of the things that I don't think it got talked about at the public works level, but didn't get discussed here, is we have businesses in the city, and the fire chief, the EMS side of the house is continuously pounding the streets trying to find staff. And we have businesses in the city right here in Algoma that pay 100% of their employees to be on a call, and the city of Algoma employees pay 2 hours. I think we're not looking to hire 100 employees, but the fire chief is looking to bring staff onto the fire side of the house and the EM side of the house. I think this gives a little more leverage to some of these other businesses. Hey, the city is, they're taking care of that as well. So,
I like the fact that we're doing the city, not that the city's more important than somebody out in the country, but the city, we are all paying for that. Get them out there, and when they're there, finish the job and pay them for the job.
And mutual aid calls, it'd still be the same, where you just basically, if permitting, we never try to send the whole house. What happens if
Right.
one guy has to go, they go, and then they come back. And just the ones that, like your townships that are Algoma's responsibility, and the city are the ones that, which township ones, we actually get compensation for, but the city ones and the mutual aid ones we don't. As long as the city ones, I think, are the most important, to make sure we have our own people here and able to do the work.
And the people that are here are the fastest response.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And to reassure the council, I feel very confident, like Casey said, with the staff that we have, are very understanding that you go take care of business and you come to work.
Yeah.
With that being said, if it comes to be an issue where now I can hang out at the fire department for an hour and a half after a call, me and the fire chief talk a lot of times throughout every week.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, I don't think anybody's
I don't
questioning
believe that will
It's just-
become a problem.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Just every step you take, the next guy wants a step, and then the next guy wants a step, and pretty soon you get that ball rolling pretty big.
Correct.
As I was looking at the position summary, I was looking at the physical demands. And in particular, I was looking at requires the ability to frequently lift loads of up to 100 pounds. Now, how does that
That's
affect?
separate. That goes for down farther. John,
We're not there yet.
Yeah.
you
John.
gotta go to E to get to that one.
Were we still talking about the fire department, John?
That's,
Oh, yeah, I know, we're
that's
not.
job
I'm not talking about that one
classification
yet.
for the,
All right, I'll wait.
So,
We're getting there though, John.
just for clarification, Kate, and I didn't mean
We're in a
to come
different
off the
boat.
wrong way, Steve.
I know you didn't.
You're
but I didn't mean anything
asking-
by it.
We're gonna pay up to 2 hours?
Up to 8 hours.
Up to 8 hours, so more than 2 hours. So
In the city.
these additional numbers that
would be
I'm
if they
looking
paid
at,
More than 2 hours,
okay,
what they had already.
and that's what I was saying, okay, we're talking 100, okay,
I agree with you,
All
but
right.
it's
Got
so
it.
important to me.
couple $100.
Yep.
But it does, the biggie on this though, if we okey dokey this, means a change in our personnel handbook.
That is correct.
Not necessarily the money, it just is crossing out some verbiage in the personnel handbook and putting new verbiage in.
Got it. And we have a motion, do we have a second?
Well, Kevin made a motion, but Kevin, can you tell me what your motion is so I can?
To approve this thing that Casey presented, however you wanna word it.
prove that the
Approval of the amendment to the
Yeah,
handbook?
sounds good, whatever you want.
Is that,
Okay, let me make sure I write, because there was some
Yeah.
issues with it this morning, so I just wanna make sure that I'm gonna get it down correctly for the notes, so we
I
don't
think in
have
the
to.
beginning it was
Just ask
misunderstanding.
Casey, he worded it perfectly.
Okay.
Also was changing from 2 hours in city to up to 8 hours in city limits, staying the same for mutual aid and township.
It's during the 8 hour period from 6 o'clock to 7:30 or, 3:30 or whatever.
This will be pushed off to full council for adoption, and we will then have a draft of that verbiage of what will be coming out of the handbook and what will be going in the
Right.
handbook.
Yeah, just like that.
No,
second?
Okay. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Wait one
Aye.
second.
Wait, just
Oh.
please hold on 1 second.
Okay.
I just wanna make sure we got this. So we're gonna follow the Public Works recommendation, changing the policy from being paid for up to 2 hours in the city, now making it up to 8 hours. And I'll add the verbiage not to exceed their 8-hour workday. But staying the same as what's now for the mutual aid and township calls.
Correct.
For
Is
the
that
fire
correct?
department and EMS.
So fire and.
Should the overtime thing be put in there somehow?
We will add that
Okay.
in the verbiage of the handbook. I don't think
Yeah.
that'll also
Yeah.
be part of the motion.
Okay,
But it will be stated and clarified in the employee handbook.
okay,
Okay, and that motion was made by Kevin and seconded by Scott.
yep.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so then all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Okay, the next item is the Phase 2 filter building.
Yes, so everybody has a copy of that in front of them, with Veolia header on it. This is something that we've started working on back in this is something that's been worked on prior to September of 2018 and me starting. It goes all the way back to Jeff Wiswell, just so everybody can kind of wrap their head on it. But this part of the Phase 2, we actually started working on in July of this year, okay? So Suez, prior to Veolia, that operates our wastewater facility, they have a contract, a day-to-day operations contract with the city of Algoma, okay? They also have another side of Suez that does construction and does maintenance to their facilities and other facilities that they operate or just do work in, right? So the city went out and asked for a proposal to do some renovations at the wastewater facility here in the city of Algoma. Those prices came back at the time, I think at about $1.6 million. The administrator at the time, Jeff Wiswall, had asked if they would break that up, be willing to break this up into phases, so it was easier for the city to do this work over a financial time period that worked better for the city of Algoma versus coming up with $1.6 million and doing all the work all at once, right? And some of the work was necessary to have done, some of it wasn't emergency work, but needless to say, all of it needs to be done. So 3 years ago now, I apologize, we started phase one in the filter building, and they took the phase one work and broke it up into 2 payments, so we paid for it in 2 years. And correct me if I'm wrong, Amber, but I think it was 2019 and 2020, or was it 2020 and 2021 that we did phase one?
I think it was 20 and 21.
20 and 21. And that was doing a lot of painting in the filter building and cleaning up. We changed the filter media in the filter house and put all new filter media in there. After that, we started to look at phase two. Okay, what you have in front of you today is phase two. And when this was first brought to us, if you get down into the scope of work, okay, because we have a maintenance contract, some of this can obviously fall under maintenance and is done by maintenance that needs to be done to the building. Some of it is changing out, like the heating system. That is no longer maintenance, that is updating to what we currently have, okay? So we pushed it back to now Suez is gone, Jeff Wiswell is gone, and it's Veolia, and said this isn't maintenance, we need some reassurance. So went to the city attorney, talked to the city attorney says, you are correct, this is not maintenance, that does not fall under maintenance, okay? Went back to Veolia brought forth all of they went to competitive pricing and reached out to substantially meet the bid process of performing this work back under the realm of Jeff Wiswall. We now have that to the point of, okay, now we have light to bring this forth and how we are going to operate, and we are now okay to have the mayor enter into this contract. So this went to Public Works this morning, I think for the 3rd time, and was moved up to Finance and Personnel, and then will get moved for adoption. If anybody has any questions, if you get into the 2nd page or the back side of page 1, the total dollar amount of the project is $327,290. Veolia is willing to break this up into 2 years of payments for us of $163,645. Okay, this monies is earmarked under the capital outlay for the wastewater treatment facility.
Already.
Okay, then, would you like
I made a motion to move forward on Veola phase 2 filter building contract that we see in front of us.
I'll second that.
Okay. Erin, did you get both of those down?
Almost.
Okay.
Okay, so that was made by Lee, seconded by Jake.
Yep.
So-
Okay.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Okay, then the tree ordinance update.
I'm gonna turn this over to Casey, but this was presented to everybody at the Public Works meeting this morning as well,
Yeah.
and moved up to Finance and Personnel. But Casey, if you wanna walk through this and the reason why we're at this point.
Sure, so, our tree ordinance that we had, some of the stipulations were pretty vague. And, to kinda ensure the health of our trees in the town, I thought it'd be best if we went through and added some stuff to the ordinance. So So in the packet, if you look at the ones, the highlighted stuff is the stuff that we added in. And then the stuff that's lined out would basically be replaced by the highlighted stuff. It basically gives the city a little more, I don't wanna call it authority, but right to not allowing somebody either just to plant a tree wherever they want, and then get mad when we trim it or have to remove it for some reason. It goes as far as to if you call a tree a nuisance, where if you have a tree on somebody's private property, if it's hanging over a stop sign, right now we have the authority to basically take it into the city right away and cut a straight line. It's not healthy for the tree. So what we're looking at is, what you do is for that instance, is somebody's pine tree's hanging over a stop sign, you send them a letter and you notify them they got X amount of days to fix it. If they don't fix it, that gives our public works department the ability to go in there and trim it correctly, only to stop the hazard, is basically what it comes down to. It explains a little more what we expect around our city trees. It was already in the report, but such as no bricks or concrete, or you can't just do anything, you can't nail stuff to your tree in the city trees. That was some of the biggest points of it. On top of that, since we happen to be cutting down a fair amount of trees in a tree lawn, I proposed what's in the letter basically is a tree planting program. That's because our problem is when we have these big maple trees, we have small terraces, small tree lawns. Well, it's not healthy for the tree, it's not healthy for the sidewalk, it's not healthy for basically anything. So what this tree program would try to alleviate is planting a maple tree that's supposed to get 2 feet in diameter in a 18-inch terrace. So what we would end up doing is opening up to the city of where you want a tree planted. The city will buy the tree, plant the tree, and then then it becomes your tree. You maintain the tree. You plant it on private property. Anybody could get on the list to do it. It wouldn't just be people who we cut their trees down. But if we cut down a tree in front of somebody's house, they would have the first right to a tree. There's $5,000 that we have in the urban forestry grant to plant trees, which is where that money would be coming from, so I wouldn't say it'd be any extra expense to the city. The homeowner would be able to decide what tree they want, except for a maple tree. So they could decide the tree they want, where they want it, as long as it's okayed by basically myself or Matt, we would order the tree, get it planted, and then it's their tree. So we're saving the infrastructure of the city work side, but we're also keeping the canopy and the tree health of our population better.
Can I make one comment? I thought about it this morning after we
Yeah.
talked, but I kept it. When you give them the letter saying you have this many days or the city's coming, can you soften that up? Because some
It
old
wouldn't
lady
say-
isn't gonna,
No.
you understand what I'm saying? Don't make it like an ultimatum, make it like we're helping them.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so we're looking for biodiversity in the kinds of trees that we're putting in.
Yes.
Are we,
The maple tree part
I understand.
isn't our stipulation, that's actually part of the urban forestry grant stipulation.
I absolutely understand that, because one maple tree blight will wipe out a good chunk of the city, similar to what happened to ash trees. So if we can have the biodiversity of different species of trees, that's great. If we can have those species be native species, that augments our bird city status in terms of providing an environment for them to thrive, as opposed to putting in cultivars which doesn't support the bugs that the birds like to eat.
So our arboricultural handbook that the city has a list of okay trees basically it was done by a forester that came and did it for the city.
Right,
So it basically has to be off that list.
okay.
So I shouldn't say any tree you want, but basically any tree you want.
Any
I'd
pre-approved
like a
tree.
Mexican palm, please.
No, then not any tree you want.
Man.
So you put lights on it?
Then I'd put lights on
That
it.
arborist and that, when he did come in, I know he took samples of the ground in that certain areas so that you get a tree that will thrive in that ground rather than just putting any old tree there, you know, so.
We need action on this?
Yes, because this ordinance has to get moved to.
The council?
The council, and then it'll be in effect after it gets published. And then, do you need action on the tree planting program for that grant, or that's just the FYI?
You want, you want to make it all one packet?
Yes, I think it would all become
All
one.
one
It's all
motion?
included, I mean,
Yeah.
included
Okay.
too.
I don't wanna screw this up, wording it. Make a motion to, approve or run it up the food chain to the full council on draft ordinance 836 and also the 2023 tree planting program as it has been submitted.
Perfect.
Except for the running up the food chain part.
Well,
It's a
technically.
Give him a
character.
hard time on that one.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay.
The food chain part too.
Okay, we have a motion and a
Did you know what I
second.
meant?
Yeah, I did.
Are you ready for the?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion is approved. Okay, then on to the work right-of-way permits.
Yes, so the work in the right-of-way permit is something that the city already has an ordinance for. So we have an ordinance in our ordinance book, but we do not have a permit that anybody fills out in the city. So when we started this work in the right-of-way permit, we have a lot of issues that occur. And maybe it sounds like there's an echo, but this started at the Public Works, I think, back in October, maybe even prior to October. And we looked at a couple different options of different permits that are out there. I think the Public Works Committee has settled on this one. But with that being said, is we have an ordinance, but no work in the right-of-way permit. So anything that happens in the city right-of-way, if it's public service putting in gas, if it's Bug Trestle now is working in the right-of-way. We have no permit that dictates or holds them accountable for any work. So if they put a cut in a blacktop or in the sidewalk, or they remove a sidewalk cake, it is more or less their word to say, we're gonna pour that sidewalk cake back and make it right for the city. This permit that everybody has in front of them today, more or less gets their information that we can go back to them and hold them accountable for the work that's being done in the right of way.
This permit would not apply to,
Any work of the utilities,
or the street department.
that is correct.
Is there? I
So
didn't-
with that being said, if the utilities is digging up a terrace and burying new street lighting, we would not charge the utilities to uphold this permit.
Is there a requirement, if they're not the city, when they complete this permit, that they also produce proof of insurance in case they have an unintended event, like knocking out some of our city utility services while they're doing their work?
Like a contractor would come in and perform, say, digging in a gas line and they knock out our, they hit a fiber optic line.
Correct.
Yes, that would cover for us to go back. Now, the thing with it is if a utility, and I'm just gonna say public service, is digging to replace a gas line, and they dig up a fiber optic line, okay? The city is not out any, that would be up between public service and Digger's Hotline and whoever owns that fiber optic line, okay? The city would not stand in the middle of that unless obviously we were one of the customers that were out of data, right? We didn't have any email, okay? Unfortunately, still at that time, it would go back to AT&T or Charter Communications to say, hey, we don't have any service.
I would think the Digger's hotline rules of 18 inches would still apply, correct, even with this?
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, we don't get to change any dictation
Yeah.
of where things are located or anything like that. So if there's a locate called in because of utility, we would go out there and locate it as always.
Yep.
So Digger's hotline is 18 inches on center line or 9 inches on center line? for
Center line, 18
Center
on
line.
center, yep.
So 36 inches either side? Or
18 either side.
36 inches?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just back this up for a second? John, are you asking for like a certificate of liability insurance for something to go along with this?
Yes.
So what he's saying is if Scott is gonna decide to pour concrete, sidewalk, whatever, Scott Meverden's company is going to do this. John is asking if we are requiring a certificate of liability insurance to go along with this permit. We require certificate of liability insurance for like special events. Any event that's going on at Legion Park by Shanty Days or anything like that, we require a liability of certificated, you know what I mean? We require that for up to $1 million. Are we also going to require that with this permit? Is that what you're asking?
Do
Yes.
we
Okay.
not do that now with our
Thank you.
contractors, like Matt's skid steer service? Do we never ask him for his insurance?
We do
Yeah.
on anything we have going on, but if the homeowner or whoever is taking out this permit, are we also going to require the insurance for this permit?
No, because they aren't gonna bond. I mean, any other contractor's gotta set up, show there's bonding.
So,
That we do.
Right, I said, the other contractors would have to show a bond. Or
so,
if it's just a citizen, like if Scott's gonna do his own, he's gonna have to show
the liability
If
insurance,
it's just a temporary liability to do such, he's gonna, you know,
because it's on city property. Does that make sense?
Right.
Would it be either or, Matt, insurance
I
or a
think
bond?
if we go to 14, I think we could change that to show, insurance or
or
bond.
bond. Well,
Yeah, because
Yeah.
On line 14,
That would make
I think it
sense.
could be one or the
I have
other.
insurance, but I wouldn't have a bond that would cover
Well,
John's
and there's
specific.
numerous different types of bonds.
I found that out today.
But I think you could clean up 14 by just adding
wasn't
insurance, waiver, or bonded.
Yeah.
Does that make
Yes.
Does
sense
that
to
cover
change
what you're
that?
asking, John? Kind of following the same way we do within a special event program where you have to have that $1 million policy. I think it's whatever.
Balloon policy,
Yep,
it's
that
called.
balloon policy.
Yes.
Would we be having that same thing with this?
That's a good idea.
Because I'm gonna bring it up and ask the question, because we're not gonna, this is gonna go to, full council for adoption. Is there a dollar amount that we wanna see?
Right now, our special event permit is 1 million.
That's a pretty common insurance
Yeah,
policy.
I'm just making sure that.
Sounds like a lot, but it's pretty common.
It does.
For consistency
I just
purposes.
don't wanna come back and everybody's like, well, you should have 5 million, or we should have 500,000.
No, I think,
If everybody's okay with a million is,
yeah.
5 million would be a catastrophic event, as best I can think of.
That's what I was gonna say, I mean, $1 million, I mean, if it's a common citizen that's doing it.
Yeah, even
is
a
there
fiber optic
any
cable's
chance
like
of him
300,000,
Doing
so.
$1 million worth of
Nah.
damage if,
we don't have those big issues here.
you know.
Yeah.
Depends what they're doing and how much.
Well, yeah, I understand, but I mean,
If we
if
do,
you're
I'm
ripping out sidewalks and stuff, I mean,
Backing
it'd have
up,
to
I'm
be
out of
pretty.
business that
You
day.
hit a gas line and take out 4 houses, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that'd
So
be
should we just copy the language, or kind of Matt and I will work together on the language on that?
To add that
Make
into
it similar
14.
to the special event policy language on number 14?
yeah.
I think that would be prudent.
Okay.
Then I would ask this council to adopt that with the amendment of 14 being made.
Okay,
Moved. Second.
okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, that motion is adopted. Okay, then, public service labor, shared employees?
John, I know, has a question.
I do.
Yeah,
How about you know what it is, too?
Well, you got started, but then they cut you off.
yeah.
No.
So what this is, per the budget, we had another employee added in as the public service, Parks and Rec. this went to the Public Works Committee today as well. This would be to get approval to post for that position, if everybody likes this job description. John has a question about it.
Yeah, I do, and it has to come with the physical demands. And I'm looking at the requires the ability to frequently lift loads up to 100 pounds. My concern is, one, you know, how does that work with women applying for this job? Because I know some of the federals have gone to 70 pounds. The other piece of it is, does this have any direct relationship with low back injuries as a result, you know, through workers' comp? In terms of making the requirement, you know, frequently lifting 100 pounds or more. That requires an awful lot of upper body strength and proper body mechanics. It doesn't?
I'm not disagreeing with you, John. The only thing I would say to that is, I've got, like in our business, for an example, your standard warehouse workers, it's a 50, and then our truck drivers are 100.
Okay. Because,
And if they can't do it, they just don't put the application in.
I'm sorry?
If they can't do it, I mean, they're gonna look at it and see what the requirements are when they fill in the application out, and if it's like, they think they can do it, I guess they'll fill the application out. It's not really discriminated, it's just that's what you're.
But to
you know,
add on to that,
I know
too,
where you're coming
before
from,
you
but
go-
at the same time, it's,
You know, but yeah, if you're required to be able to operate, have a CDL, and if you're changing out a piece of equipment on a front loader, or you're changing out a piece of equipment on the truck, there certainly is going to be a component or two, a hydraulic line or a hydraulic piston that you're going to have to connect that is going to weigh that amount, is going to weigh that.
The only thing I would add to that, John, is, you know, one of the best truck drivers that we have in my region happens to be female. I've got a couple, and as well as smaller gentlemen that maybe weigh 150 pounds sopping wet. They all do a great job. It's not like they're lifting 100-pound bags up all day, every day. But
Well, the word frequent is what caught my eye, along with the poundage.
well,
And
It's
like
not,
I said,
it's not a
in-
forced,
And it doesn't matter
thing.
if it's,
This is-
you know, whether it's a woman's body or a man's body, the effect that, or the toll that it takes on the lower back, which was not built for that, is important.
is this congruent with all of our other public works?
It is really what it is one of our Public Works employees, last employee's job description with status added into it that covers the parks side of it. So you'll see some janitorial things, the ability to, you know, do some cleaning and some building maintenance things as well.
Yeah, this,
That's been added to it.
it's,
So,
It's consistent.
So really, it's
Yeah.
boilerplate with some things added to it.
Yeah.
so you're talking about doing, like the change house, the marina, the youth center, that's.
Knutson Hall, the youth club,
Okay.
yes. In the
Okay.
past, Mike has done some things upstairs of the firehouse. He's done some painting and some maintenance here at City Hall, at the library. So that's gonna kind of fall under this new, job realm.
You brought up a good point though, John. So pre-employment testing, must pass a post-employment for drug screen, obviously DOT physical. Is that lift is there a lift assessment?
There is not, we do not.
Oh, okay.
Because
That's,
post office
we
used to
we
have,
do.
they'd give you a bag that was 70 pounds.
We may want, that's just a general, and that's where I was going with all of our warehouse associates and truck drivers, anybody in operations they do have to pass the lift assessment. And that also takes the liability off the employer, saying, well, they did pass the lift assessment test, so that may be something we wanna look at in the future.
would we then want to have any training in lifting? or is that,
God, I hope you have something in body mechanics. 'Cause if
you know what I'm
don't,
saying? I mean, there's a proper way to live.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's getting kind of further into the weeds but
Yeah.
good point. I mean, we have monthly safety trainings that we do, and that's one of them. Proper lifting techniques or climbing a
Get-
ladder.
Get somebody else to assist. Yeah, okay.
Unrelated but related. Do you think,
That was the question that I had for this one. Was-
can we look into that, Matt?
Sure can,
I
most
mean, just
definitely.
making lift assessments a part of pre-employment? Not just for this one, but for future. Probably be a good idea.
So did you, what are we looking to do here tonight with this?
Adopt this, with any other changes.
I move forward, I make a motion to move forward on the public service labor recruitment notice and application.
Does this need to go to council as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought,
Can you post it?
I was gonna say, I thought we were going to
Yes,
post
I
this.
apologize. We are going to post this, but yes, it will, go for final adoption at the public. Leave the public out of it, at the council meeting, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So with your motion tonight, we will be able to post this position to hire a shared labor between Public Works and Parks and Recreation for the 2023 year.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion is approved. Okay, the next thing is the agenda for our next meeting. If you could get that to Matt or Aaron so we can put it on the agenda. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, January 17th. Okay. and
I have
then-
a question about the meeting date and time. Does the 4 o'clock work for everybody? Because I'm having some slight issues. We are posted to be open until 4 o'clock. Is there any thoughts about pushing it back to 4:30 so we can keep City Hall properly open like it's supposed to be, or does everybody wanna stay at the?
We were always at 4:30, but I thought we had to change it because the mayor can't make it.
Right, and is this still the same thing, still an issue? Just because we're posted that we're open here until 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And if I'm starting a meeting at 4 o'clock, we can't be
But
open.
Amber's here, is she?
Yeah.
And right, if we're okay with having Amber then close City Hall, that's fine. It's just
Okay.
hard to get here and
I'll
keep
always
this one
meet
for
10
4.
minutes late.
Okay.
Just make it that she's sure she's here, and then she calls in sick or something, but I mean.
Okay, so 4 o'clock?
Yeah, okay.
4:30.
Okay, and the next item is a motion to go into closed session.
Motion to go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85, parenthesis 1, parenthesis C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Performance evaluation of certain police department employees.
Make the motion.